The Bride of the Cursed Lake. Chapter 9. The Longest Night. Part 2. I stood at the edge of the lake, the blade still sheathed, the ritual waiting. The fog curled low across the ground, patient, expectant, as if the world itself held its breath. The knife weighed more than it should have in my hand, its ornate hilt cold against my palm, the twin shapes of swans inlaid on either side. I knew those lines. I knew those shadows. The steel was still bright, still hungry. It did not feel like something I had brought here. It felt as though it had brought me. It rested in my hand, knowing what came next, breathing like it had already seen the end. Lilith had placed the blade into my hands the morning after I returned from the circle of stones. She had not wrapped it as a gift, but bound it tight in cloth, as one might bind a wound to keep it from bleeding. I remember the way her fingers held the bundle a moment too long before letting go, the way her voice fell soft and certain, as if the words had already been spoken 100 times before. "You cannot choose," she told me. "Not until there is nothing left to choose." I asked her why she was helping me, why now, but she only turned her gaze toward the drifting fog outside her window, her face closing like a door. I understood then that no answer would come. I stepped out into the morning mist, with the blade pressed tight beneath my arm, my hands unsteady, the weight of it already altering the shape of my resolve. Now, at the altar, there was no more time for doubt, no more room for questions. The blade slid free of its wrappings with a whisper too soft for the wind to carry. The metal caught the pale shimmer of the candlelight, bright and waiting. I pressed the edge to my palm, steady, deliberate, the kiss of the blade against my skin slow and unflinching. The first drop of blood fell, then another, each one more eager than the last, pooling at the altar's edge before slipping down into the lake below. The water took it greedily, pulling the red into its dark depths until the ripples began to stir against the calm. The words came next, not mine, not truly, pieced together from the fragments Anna had left behind, from the warnings in the village records, from the half-spoken riddles Lilith had shared in silence. I spoke them with a voice that barely sounded human, shaped more by need than by breath. The fog thickened as I spoke, coiling tighter around the water, around me. The lake began to shift beneath the weight of the ritual, the surface pulling itself inward as if remembering how to breathe. Shapes moved beneath the black, faint, flickering, dissolving and forming again, just beyond the reach of vision. But I kept speaking, word after word, each one a tolling bell, each one an offering. The blood, the blade, the chant, the price. My voice broke once, faltered on a name, but I did not stop. I could not stop. There was no turning back, only blood, Finally, the promise carved into my skin. I watched the blood as it fell. It moved toward the altar's edge, pooling for a brief, unsteady moment before it dropped to the lake, to Anna, to the fate I both sought and feared. It met the water and vanished into it, a memory too old to remember, too young to forget. The surface absorbed it all, every drop, every ache, until the dark began to shift, rippling, stirring, remembering. The blood pulled at me, dragging my will beneath the surface, down into the hollow place where memory and flesh dissolve. The journey came next, violent and sudden, without warning. The lake transformed, pulled from the depths of silence into the thrash and struggle of waking, of life, of not knowing. The knife had done its part. Would I? I spoke the incantation through broken breath, each word an invasion. It was not a language I owned, only borrowed, only begged for. The lines were pieced together from village records and Lilith's hints, from fragments of stories too painful to tell, from the dust of every wish that never came true. They caught in my throat, sharp as the knife, raw as the truth. The lake consumed the sounds. The lake consumed me. I stood at the water's edge, blood flowing, life flowing, her name in my pulse, in the soft flutter of memory. I stood, but the ground seemed further away, the sky further still. The fog wrapped around me, more thicker, more larger. Each breath filled my lungs with the heaviness of water. Each step toward the altar was a lifetime away. Shapes moved beneath the surface, dissolving and forming like distant dreams, like wings, like promises that faded before they were spoken. I watched them through failing eyes. I felt the ground shift, the horizon shift, the lines and shadows stretch and stretch until I thought they might break me. The incantation faltered. My voice broke. Where was she? Where was I? The water thrashed and beat, angry, joyful, desperate, alive with a hunger I had never imagined. The wind picked up, rushing through the gaps, between words and flesh, between history and hope. James. I heard my name from somewhere lost between the fog and the dark. From nowhere, the waves reached for me, dark and unrepentant. They struck the shore with brutal grace, with relentless beauty. The shapes rose and dissolved, again and again. The chill found my bones, my marrow. There was no room for doubt, only enough space for fear. I held the blade with trembling fingers, each drop of blood falling like a piece of myself, until there was nothing left to offer. Anna. The ritual burned through me, her name seared into every breath, every wound, the final fire of belonging, the only prayer I had left. Anna. The blade flashed once more, cruel and bright, its edge leaving the truth carved deep into my skin, not as punishment, but as the mark of choice. This was how it would end. This was how it would begin. My blood met the water. The lake swallowed it quietly, as if it had always been waiting. The surface trembled, the ripples circling outward, carrying my offering into the dark. The fog leaned closer. The cold pressed deeper, but the lake did not claim me. Not yet. It listened, and I stood shivering, bleeding, my voice raw with her name. Anna. Her name echoed back from the mist. Not an answer, not a denial, only distance, only waiting. The chant fell from my lips like broken glass. My hands shook. The blade lowered, but I could not stop. I would not stop. I felt the world shift beneath my feet, the edge of the ritual tightening around me like a snare. Somewhere between calling and silence, between blood and water, the space began to open. The space where the curse could breathe. The space where she might still hear me.